Welcome, sleepy traveler. You've arrived at a quiet space made just for you. My name is Valarie, and I am here to guide you gently into rest, to help ease your mind, soften your body, and drift you toward a peaceful, uninterrupted sleep. Whether your day was long or your thoughts feel a little too loud tonight, let this be your permission to slow down, to breathe, and to simply be. There's nothing more to do now. Just allow my voice to be your guide as we begin this gentle journey toward deep, nourishing rest. If you're new here, subscribe for sleep content like this, and like this video if you find it enjoyable. Now let's begin. Allow yourself to ease into this moment. Let the day slowly begin to fall away behind you. There is nothing you need to do now. Nowhere to go. No one to be but yourself. You are safe. You are held. You are home. Gently close your eyes if they aren't already. Feel your body beginning to soften little by little. Notice where you're holding any tension. Perhaps in your shoulders, your jaw, your belly. And without force, let it gently melt away. Like snow under morning sunlight. Allow your breath to become soft and natural. No need to change it. Just observe. Notice the way the air moves in and the way it moves out. Let each breath be a gentle invitation to rest. Feel the rise of your chest as you inhale, and the gentle fall as you exhale. This rhythm belongs to you, a quiet reminder of your presence here. And now, imagine now that you are lying under a soft, weighted blanket. It fits your body perfectly, and it offers a feeling of calm, like a loving embrace from the universe itself. Let yourself be completely supported. You are not alone in this moment. The world can wait. This time is yours. Your body, your breath, your stillness. Let the silence around you become part of your rest. Even the quietest hum of the room is part of this gentle rhythm. And if there is sound, let it pass like a cloud through the sky. You don't have to hold it. You don't have to name it. Let it float on by. Return to your breath. Soft, natural. With every breath out, you are releasing the weight of the day. You are giving your body permission to rest, permission to soften, to restore, to simply be. Let your legs feel heavy and grounded. Let your arms rest completely. Unclench your jaw. Soften the space between your eyebrows. Let the muscles of your face loosen, and your entire body follow. Imagine that any tension left in your body is gently dripping away, down through the soles of your feet, into the soft earth below. You are being supported, cradled by the bed beneath you, by gravity itself, by the breath that continues without effort. You are doing exactly what you need to do, which is nothing at all. Imagine now that you're lying in a peaceful meadow. The grass beneath you is soft and warm. The sky above is deep and quiet. A few gentle stars are beginning to appear. Their light is soft and timeless. You are safe here. Let the cool, calm air move across your skin. Let your breath move in harmony with the breeze. The world here is still and kind, just like your breath, just like your heart, just like this moment. Each moment of rest is an act of care. Each breath is a lullaby. You are not behind. You are not too late. You are not missing anything. You are right where you need to be. Let your mind settle gently, like leaves floating down onto still water. Thoughts may come, but you don't need to chase them. You can notice them and let them pass. Your body knows how to rest. Your breath knows the way. You are simply following its rhythm. Inhale and exhale. That's all. As you rest here, know that this space is always available to you. Every night. Every time you need to return. It will be here, waiting gently, welcoming you back with open arms. This is your moment of peace, a quiet pause from the world. There is nothing else required of you. You have already done enough. Tonight is for rest. Tonight is for letting go. Let the stars keep watch. Let the moon guide your dreams. Let the silence hold you. Let your body restore itself with ease. As you continue to breathe, feel yourself drifting deeper into comfort, like being gently rocked on quiet waters. Let sleep come, soft and slow, like a whisper, like a feather falling. Let go. Let go. Let go. And now I'll step back and let the quiet do the rest. Stay with your breath. Stay in your softness. Rest deeply and peacefully. Here and now, you are safe. You are enough. You are loved. Good night. You step softly into the backyard, barefoot, the grass cool and slightly damp beneath your feet. A faint breeze rustles the trees overhead, and the sky above is a soft navy blanket, dotted with stars just beginning to twinkle. The familiar scent of earth and summer lingers in the air, a mix of cut grass, warm soil, and the faint sweetness of honeysuckle trailing over the old fence. It smells like memories. Tucked away beneath the large maple tree near the back of the yard is your tent. It's small and simple, a homemade canopy of old bed sheets and clothespins draped over a clothesline just as you used to make. You smile. It's still there, waiting, just like it used to. Soft fairy lights wind around the inside, their glow golden and gentle. A cozy nest of pillows, worn blankets, and stuffed animals makes the floor inviting, a quiet sanctuary from the world beyond the fence. You duck inside. The world immediately hushes. Crickets sing in the grass nearby. A few distant frogs join in with soft croaks from the direction of the creek. And above, the stars continue to brighten. You stretch out on your side, sinking into the softness. The fabric of the tent flutters slightly with the breeze. It smells like laundry detergent and childhood. You turn your head upward. The top of the tent has a small opening, just wide enough to glimpse the sky. One by one, you trace the stars with your eyes. That one you remember is Vega. And to the left, Altair. You used to try and memorize their names, whispering them like secret codes into the dark. You remember lying here years ago, counting stars until you lost track. Back then you thought the stars were holes in the sky, pinpricks in some great velvet dome. You used to imagine a giant hand sewing them shut with thread made of moonlight. You chuckle softly at the thought, then close your eyes and breathe. The night wraps around you like a warm, familiar hug. Somewhere the wind chimes on the back porch, whisper a lullaby only the wind knows. You can feel the sway of the trees, tall and gentle, their leaves murmuring in sleepy rhythm. Like guardians. You roll onto your back. The blanket beneath you is soft, worn cotton. It smells faintly of the linen closet, cedar, lavender, and something like safety. Your hand brushes against an old stuffed animal, the one with the frayed ear and stitched-on button eye. You remember its name. You hadn't thought of it in years. You bring it close. It feels right. Just like it used to. Outside the tent, the moon begins to rise. Its light is soft and silver, spilling through the flap and resting like a blanket over the grass. You can feel time slowing down. The busy world fading. Here there is only stillness and breath. A shooting star glides silently across your sliver of sky. You don't even have to wish. Everything you need is already here. You remember the sound of your childhood, a screen door creaking open, fireflies blinking near the fence, the hum of a far-off lawnmower. Even now, the fireflies blink around you like tiny lanterns, dancing slow and golden in the warm night air. The stars begin to blur, not because they're gone, but because your eyes are heavy. Sleep is arriving on tiptoe. You listen to the hush of the grass, to the hush of your breath, to the hush of the past. In your dream mind, you feel yourself rise gently, floating just above the tent. The backyard below is soft and glowing, and the stars seem even closer now. You drift slowly upward, weightless, peaceful. The air up here is cool and velvety. The stars hum softly like lullabies in a language you once knew. A constellation shaped like a sailboat glides by, and you ride along, wrapped in a quilt of starlight and old memories. You pass a moonlit swing hanging from a cloud. It swings gently, as if inviting you to rest. But you keep floating. Until even the worries of the day seem like tiny stones far below, left behind on the earth's gentle shoulder. You find yourself drifting beside a familiar face, the child you once were. They smile at you, sleepy-eyed but sure. You hold hands for a moment. No words are needed. Then gently the dream brings you back. Back to the soft tent. To the cozy pile of blankets. To the gentle hum of summer night. Your breath rises and falls like waves. Calm. Safe. You are home. Not just in place, but in time. Held gently in the arms of your memories. The tent breathes with you. Light flickers across the fabric in warm rhythms. You can feel the lullaby of the stars washing over you. Each breath takes you deeper. Each heartbeat slower. The edges of your thoughts soften. Your body grows heavy and light at the same time. Like a feather. Like a wish. Like a memory tucked inside a patchwork quilt. The stories of your childhood gently wrap around you, not loud or bright, just quiet flickers of warmth and wonder. And somewhere, just outside the tent, the world turns slowly. The grass grows. The moon watches. And the stars wait patiently above, waiting for you to drift. Gently, softly, all the way into sleep. Just like you used to. Under the quiet hum of stars. Inside a tent made of dreams. With the night holding you close. It began with a shadow that didn't belong to anything, not to a tree, nor a person, nor a passing bird overhead. Just a hush of dusk that curled beside the fountain, and the strange sense that the lamplight wasn't chasing it away, it was welcoming it home. That's when I first heard my name, spoken not like a call, but like the beginning of a very old story I'd forgotten was mine. It began on a Tuesday, the kind of Tuesday where the sun took its time leaving the sky, dragging amber light across the cobblestones like it didn't want to go just yet. I'd stayed in the village square later than usual, caught up in the way the bakery's chimney smoke curled upward like ribbon and how the lamplighter moved, slow and reverent, as though each lantern were a small prayer. That's when I noticed it. The shadows. They weren't behaving like ordinary dusk. They didn't shrink from the lamplight or melt into corners. Instead, they gathered, clustered like friends around the fountain in the center of the square, lengthening not with the angle of the sun, but with purpose, intent, and the air, it had a hum to it, soft, like a lullaby just below hearing, brushing against my skin in a way that made me forget if I was warm or chilled. I stood still, heart thudding in the quiet, pretending to study the ironwork of the nearest lamp while my ears strained for something, anything, that might explain the sudden thicken of twilight. Then I heard it, a whisper, barely audible yet unmistakable. Jessica. It wasn't the voice that unsettled me. It was the way it was folded into something else. A tale, a story, like a narrator calling out a long-forgotten beginning. The girl with fern-green eyes who lulled the weeping willow to sleep. I turned around sharply, eyes scanning the square. Only a cat on the bakery windowsill. An old man wiping his spectacles by the general store. But the shadows, they held still, as if listening too. A laugh bubbled in my throat, nervous and low. Surely I misheard. The breeze, the creak of old shutters, the distant train whistle from the valley. That's all it was. And yet, I returned the next evening, and the next. The second night I brought a thermos of tea and sat on the edge of the fountain. I didn't hear my name, but I did notice the shadows again, how they curved like commas around the benches and bowed beneath the lantern light as if greeting something unseen. By the fourth night I stopped pretending it wasn't strange. I was drawn there, pulled by the hush of the place, by the feeling that if I just stayed quiet long enough, I might hear the end of the story, or the beginning, or something in between. On the seventh night, I brought my notebook. I hadn't written in it in months. Life had gotten too fast, too sharp, too filled with lists and groceries and emails and forgetting to water the basil. But the moment I sat beneath the wrought iron clock tower and opened the little leather-bound book, the air shifted again, like pages turning in an unseen hand. This time the voice came clearer, still hushed, still woven into dusk, but now full of detail. She came when the willow wept for the lost wind. She listened even when others hurried by. With her fern-green eyes, she saw not just leaves, but the ache in their trembling. I wrote the words down as fast as they came, even though they made little sense. My name wasn't spoken this time, but I didn't need it to be. Somehow the story knew me. Later, in bed, I reread the lines and felt something ancient stir behind my ribs. A memory I didn't own. A lullaby in a language I'd never spoken. The eighth night I arrived earlier. I took the same seat, steam rising from my cup of cinnamon tea, and noticed something new. The lamp nearest me flickered, not like it was faulty, but like it was blinking, as if trying to catch my attention. And when I looked up, I saw her, a figure cloaked in gray-blue seated 3 benches down. She hadn't been there before, or maybe she had, hidden in plain sight. Her face was soft, aged by kindness rather than years, and her eyes, oh, her eyes were filled with stories. "You hear them, don't you?" she asked, not unkindly. I nodded, too startled to play coy. "I used to," she said, "long ago." We didn't speak much more that night. She just smiled and disappeared into the shadows as easily as breath into frost. The next evening she was gone, but in her place was something left behind. An old silver key resting on the bench where she'd sat. I picked it up, heart skipping. It was warm. Too warm for metal left out overnight. Tied to it was a scrap of parchment, inked in looping script. Every whisper needs a listener, every story a place to land. That night, the whisper returned full force. She followed the trail of wilted petals, heard the hush of the willow's lullaby, and sang, not with her voice, but with her listening. I didn't sleep much. I kept turning the key over and over in my palm, wondering what it unlocked. I checked every old gate and shed in town the next day. Nothing, but I realized something as I walked the quiet streets. It wasn't about finding the lock. Not yet. It was about listening. Listening in a way I hadn't done since I was a child lying in the grass, waiting for stars to blink awake, in a way that required stillness, surrender, and maybe remembering. So I did. I remembered the willow tree that once stood behind my childhood home, the way its branches dipped low enough to make a secret fort. I used to sit beneath it for hours, tracing its bark with my fingers, whispering to it about all the things I didn't say aloud to people. One summer, during a heat wave, its leaves drooped low, thirsty and heavy. My mother said it was just a tree, but I cried anyway. I brought it cups of water, one by one, sang lullabies I half made up, and one morning, after a rainstorm, its leaves looked brighter. I remember feeling so sure, so certain I had helped. I hadn't thought of that in years, until now. Maybe the story in the square wasn't about a girl. Maybe it was about me, or someone I had once been, or someone I could be again. And so, night after night, I returned. Sometimes I brought old poems to read aloud softly. Other times I simply sat, palms open, as if the dusk might place something gently inside them. The whispers came in fragments, never linear, always drifting like petals on water. The girl with the listening heart, who remembered the way wind bends around grief, whose shadow learned to hum in harmony. They never called me by name again, but they didn't need to. The village square became a kind of threshold between day and dream, sound and story. The kind of place where children pause mid-play to glance over their shoulder, unsure why. Where crows perch longer than usual on lanterns, listening. Where time forgets how to tick just for a little while. I still don't know where the stories come from. Maybe they're old. Maybe they belong to the land or the trees or the hush itself. Maybe they're trying to find a home. And maybe, just maybe, they've chosen me as their listener. All I know is this: dusk is different now. It arrives like a beginning, like a prologue whispered in shadow, like a warm key in my pocket, waiting for a lock that might not be made of wood or iron, but of wonder. And each night when the lamps flicker awake and the shadows gather like old friends, I return to the square and sit very still, listening. The second time I heard my name whispered through the dusk, I didn't flinch. I stood still in the village square, the same place where the first story had found me, and simply listened. It came again, soft as breath, threading through the rustling leaves and lamplight. Jessica. The shadows gathered sooner than usual tonight. I watched them blur and bend beneath the glow of lanterns, pooling in unusual shapes beneath benches and curling under flower carts like sleeping animals. One in particular stretched too tall and too narrow to belong to anything ordinary. It lingered against the stone wall of the bakery, its edges twitching faintly like it was trying to become something else. That was when the stag appeared, not in body, no hooves or bramble-snagged fur, only the suggestion of it. The silhouette shifted and lengthened until it stood in the shape of a creature I might have once seen in a picture book, or perhaps a memory. A stag, proud and watchful, its antlers curved like smoke rising into stars, and its antlers gleamed silver, even though no metal touched the shadow. I didn't move. I didn't dare. The hum in the air, the same one I'd noticed the night before, grew louder but not harsh. It was more like the low echo of a bell from beneath the earth. A resonance I felt in my chest, not in my ears. The shadow's mouth never moved, but it told me a tale. There was once a creature born of moonlight and mist, with antlers polished by the passing of centuries. It walked the borders between dreams and the waking woods. Wanderers lost in grief, sorrow, or forgetfulness would find it standing silent among the trees. But it did not speak, not unless they whispered a name. One name, long forgotten by the world but known in the heart of the desperate. I closed my eyes for a moment. The name, it wasn't spoken aloud even now. Only the idea of it hovered in the space between the words, like a scent you can't place but instantly remember. Some called it myth. Others claimed it was a ghost walking the same path night after night. But there are those who swore that if you found it and if your soul remembered the forgotten name, it would walk beside you until you found your way again. When I opened my eyes, the shadow was gone. Only the night remained. The square had emptied, but not in a rushed or fearful way. More like the people had wandered off in a dream. A few lanterns still flickered near the fountain. Their flames danced like they'd heard the story too. I walked home slowly, the story following me like a gentle echo. The air smelled of damp earth and cooled stone. Inside my cottage, I sat at the old wooden desk by the window and opened my journal. Not the daily one with lists and sketches of herbs. No, the other one. The one with the faded green cover and soft, thick pages that felt like they could hold a secret without bending. I hadn't touched it in years. Not since I was a child who dreamed in wild colors and drew stars in every margin. I sketched the stag's antlers first, letting the silver tip of my pencil dance as if it remembered the way. Then I added the shadows curling around its legs, like wisps of forgotten memories. I didn't think too hard, just let my hand move. And when I finished, I realized something strange. I had drawn it before. Not in this journal, but in another. An old dream book from when I was maybe 8 or 9. I remembered it so clearly now. The drawing wasn't detailed, but I'd labeled it Silver-Horned Helper in blocky letters. I even remembered what I'd written beside it. He finds you when you forget who you are. The memory gave me chills. I lit a candle and climbed into bed, journal still warm from my hand resting on it. The window was cracked, and outside the wind carried the scent of something old, like pine and rust and distant rain. The night seemed to hold its breath. As I drifted into sleep, I wondered if I would dream of the silver stag. I hoped I would. I wanted to ask it things. The next morning, I visited the Lantern Root archives. It's not as grand as it sounds. Just a quiet room in the back of the old town hall with stacks of books, old maps, dusty pamphlets, and a librarian named Mr. Halwick who always smelled faintly of dried rosemary and ink. "I'm looking for folklore," I told him, "particularly about creatures with antlers, anything silver." He raised a brow at me, not unkindly. "Silver? You're not the first to ask." That made me pause. "I'm not?" He smiled as he pulled out a drawer filled with old index cards. "A girl came through about 10 years ago asking about silver antlers. Didn't say much, just sketched a strange image and left. I think I saved it. Hold on." He returned a moment later with a file. Inside was a yellowed slip of paper with a sketch nearly identical to mine. The antlers curved just the same. Only one thing was different. Beneath the creature, in tidy handwriting, were the words, "Remember me." The hum returned, soft and low in my ribs. Mr. Halwick let me copy the image, and I thanked him before wandering through the stacks. I didn't know what I was looking for anymore, just chasing threads. I pulled books at random. Most were town records or dusty tales about seasonal festivals. But then I found one that made my heart pause. It was titled Lantern Root Myths, Echoes in the Fog. I opened it slowly, the spine creaking. About halfway through, I found a story called The Guide Beneath the Hornbeam Trees. It spoke of an ancient spirit said to appear to those who forgot themselves, those who wandered too far from home in either body or soul. The guide had no face, only a presence and antlers that caught starlight. No one remembered its name, but those who did were said to return changed. Not fixed exactly, but found. My hands trembled slightly as I copied that tale too. That night I took a walk through the forest path just beyond the town. I didn't expect to find the stag, but something in me needed to go. The moon was a faint crescent, and the trees cast long shadows across the dirt path. Crickets chirped, and owls stirred. It wasn't eerie, just quiet in that reverent way that makes you whisper even when alone. I paused at the edge of the hornbeam grove. The trees there always bent inward like they were listening. I sat on a mossy rock and closed my eyes. If you're real, I thought, and if I'm meant to know your name, show me something, anything. Silence stretched, and then I heard a single word, not aloud, not from any mouth, but from deep within me, like an echo traveling up from my bones. Elowen! I opened my eyes sharply, heart pounding. The word faded like smoke, but I knew it hadn't come from me. Not consciously. It didn't feel invented, it felt remembered. That night I wrote it down beneath my sketch of the stag, Elowen. It shimmered faintly on the page even though I used no ink with shine. In the days that followed, the stories came more frequently. Not every dusk, but often enough that I started keeping a blanket in the square, just to sit and listen. The lamplight always changed at a certain hour, growing warmer, deeper, casting shadows that whispered. Each tale felt like a puzzle piece. One was about a girl who walked between dreams to mend broken memories. Another about a boy who planted light bulbs in the ground and grew stars. Strange, beautiful things. But they all had one thread in common, a moment of being found. And always, somewhere near the end, a flicker of something familiar. A stag, a name, a forest path, or silver light. Patterns formed, like the stories were connected through a hidden seam in the world. Not fiction, but memory. Maybe not just my memory, maybe lantern roots. I returned to my childhood journals and dreams. I hadn't realized how many sketches had stags, forests, and shadowed creatures. I had chalked it all up to imagination. But now, I wasn't so sure. I remembered a dream I had when I was very small, maybe 5. I was lost in a snow-covered forest, crying because I'd dropped my mittens. And then, through the trees, a creature came walking, tall, with silver antlers that shone like moonlight. It didn't speak, but it stood beside me until the forest melted into spring. I woke feeling safe. Had that been my first meeting with Elowen? I don't know where all this leads, but I do know this. These stories, these whispers in the dusk, they are more than tales. They are keys to something older, something waiting, and something that knows my name. The air changed that evening, not in temperature, not quite, but in tempo. It was as if the rhythm of the village itself had taken a breath and forgotten to exhale. I noticed it the moment I turned the corner into the square. Usually by dusk, the shadows would be lively, stretching and whispering, dancing among the cobblestones as if they were rehearsing a story they already knew by heart. But tonight they were still. Not frozen, just hesitating, flickering as though uncertain whether they should stay or retreat. Lantern light pooled softly around the benches and stones, but it didn't stretch as far as usual. Something in the center of the square felt hollow. The hush wasn't empty. It was expectant. I moved closer, clutching the worn notebook I always carried. The cover was freckled with charcoal smudges, petals from pressed flowers, and the odd waxy streak from past candle-lit sketches. I had pages filled with drawings of the tales I'd heard, fragments from the whispering shadows, notes from dreams I'd only half remembered. But tonight there was no whisper, no tale, no girl with fern-green eyes tucking a willow to sleep, no stag with silver antlers waiting to be called by name, just quiet. A few other villagers stood at the edges of the square, hands folded, eyes uncertain. Most of them couldn't hear the stories the way I could. They said the shadows only moved when you weren't looking, that tales drifted on the wind like pollen, easy to forget, easy to dismiss. But not for me. Never for me. Maybe that was why I stepped forward. I don't remember deciding to do it. One moment I was standing near the old water pump, heart ticking like a clock too fast, and the next I was at the very center of the square, in the circle where the shadow tales usually formed. I could feel the eyes of the village on me, and something else too. Older eyes, quieter ones. I cleared my throat. I'd like to share a story, I said. My voice wasn't loud, but the silence made it sharp. It rippled like a pebble dropped into a still lake. For a breath, nothing happened. Then a flicker. The shadows curled inward ever so slightly, like leaves drawn toward warmth. I took that as permission. This one isn't old, I began, speaking slowly, the way the shadows did. It's not about someone from long ago. It's about me. About the first night I ever heard my name whispered at dusk. The square stayed hushed. The shadows didn't move. But I felt them listening. I remember thinking the air was too still that night. I remember the lanterns burned brighter than they should have, but their glow didn't chase the darkness. It invited it. That's when I heard the story of the willow and the girl, and I knew it wasn't just a tale. My hands trembled, but I held the notebook tight against my chest. Each night since then, I've come back. I've listened. I've drawn. I've remembered. I paused. And I think that's what you've been waiting for. Someone who doesn't just hear you, but holds your stories. Lets them take root. The lantern nearest to me flickered once, The shadows swayed, then stilled again, closer now, leaning in. The silence changed. It was no longer a pause, it was a threshold. And then gently the shadows moved, not all at once. Just a slow curl from the base of the statue at the square's center, like a story beginning itself with a breath. One voice, low and crumbling like dry parchment, spoke from the dark. You remember. It wasn't a question. It was a key turning in a lock. More shadows leaned forward, and more voices rose. Not words yet, but syllables, fragments, the bare bones of tales that had long been buried beneath dust and silence. Another voice came, lighter, like candle smoke. We have waited many dusks for one like you. I nodded. Why now? I asked, unsure if I was allowed to question them. Why tonight? The first voice replied, because tonight the silence asked you to speak. A tremor passed through me, not fear, not quite. Something older, like standing inside a memory that doesn't belong to you yet feels like it might have once. The shadows formed into a shape then. Not fully, never fully, but I saw the curve of an old quill, the faint flicker of wings and a hand that held no arm, stories forming themselves. You must share what you remember, the candle smoke voice said, not to keep them alive, but to wake them. My knees felt loose, like saplings in wind. I sat cross-legged on the cobblestones right in the middle of the circle and opened my notebook. I've been sketching the tales each night, I said softly, flipping through the pages. I thought I was just collecting them, preserving something forgotten. But now, I think I was making a map. The pages rustled like leaves. One by one, I spread them across the stones, carefully, reverently. There were sketches of the silver-antlered stag, of the girl and the willow, of a tower made of salt and shadow, and of faces I didn't know but had seen in dreams. The shadows pulsed around me, humming a tune without music. One of them, thinner than mist, hovered over a sketch I'd drawn months ago, a lantern suspended in air with no hook, no string. That, said a new voice, one that sounded like wind through reeds, is the first light. It was ours once. I blinked. The first light? Yes, the voice said. The lantern that led the first rememberer through the dark. The shadows moved again, curling gently around the image. And then they began to show me, not through words, but memory. Their memory. A village like mine, long ago. A girl not unlike me, kneeling beneath a tree that bloomed at night. Her eyes were fern green too. I gasped. She was humming the same lullaby I used to hum when I couldn't sleep. She was the first, said the shadow voice, but not the last. My heart felt full and strange, like I was carrying too many echoes at once. We passed the stories down, another voice whispered, one that felt like frost. not in books or names, in listeners who remember, who let the tales settle like dew. I looked around the square. The villagers had grown quiet. Some were seated now. Others stood with hands over their hearts as if feeling something they couldn't name. "I want to help," I whispered. "You already are," the shadows replied. And then, slowly, as if unfolding a secret, they offered something I hadn't expected. A story of me. Not as I was now, but as I had been. A small child standing beneath the arches of the village library, staring up at a carving of the moon in the stone, humming to myself, and something else. Something small and dark and gleaming had perched beside me. A shadow listening. I remembered it now. A dream, I thought, from when I was 7. But it wasn't a dream. "You've been listening for longer than you knew," they said. Tears gathered at the edge of my vision, not out of sadness, but recognition. Something in me had always known. "I'll keep remembering," I whispered. The shadows flickered in approval. "We will keep giving," they said. And then the stories resumed, not abruptly, but gently. A tale bloomed from the ground like a flower. One about a boy who sang stones awake. Another about a forgotten language that only lanterns spoke. I didn't move from my place in the center. I listened. I remembered. I drew, scribbling with fevered fingers in the fading light, letting the stories wash through me. And for the first time the square felt whole, as if the silence had always been waiting for this moment, when someone brave enough would answer it, not with questions, but with memory. And so I stayed until the last lantern dimmed and the shadows curled back into the corners of the village like cats curling into sleep. I rose slowly, my notebook heavier than ever, not with weight, but meaning. As I turned to leave, the voice like candle smoke whispered one final thing. "Jessica, remember this. Stories that are held become stories that heal." I held those words to my chest as I walked home, the sky silvering with the promise of dawn. I didn't know what came next, but I knew this. I wasn't just a listener anymore. I was a keeper, a rememberer, and maybe, just maybe, a storyteller too. The watchtower had always been there, silent, leaning, and mostly ignored. A relic with shuttered windows and ivy-wrapped stones, it had become part of the scenery, something the eye skipped over the way one forgets a freckle on the back of their hand. But that night, guided by symbols whispered in shadows and etched in my sketchbook, I found myself standing at its crooked base. I hesitated at the doorway, the woods swollen with age and rain. It took effort to push it open. It groaned like it hadn't been touched in decades, and maybe it hadn't. Dust scattered upward in a breathy sigh, and I stepped into the dim hush of what felt like another time. The air smelled of earth and rust and something faintly sweet, like dried lavender long forgotten in an attic drawer. My footsteps echoed on the warped floorboards as I climbed the winding stairs, my lantern bobbing beside me like a heartbeat. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for, only that every tale I had heard, every flickering shadow in the village square had led me here. A phrase from the story of the silver-antlered stag echoed in my mind. Only in places the sun forgets, the heart light remembers. And there, beneath the rafters, tucked in the belly of the tower where the wind whistled through cracked slats, I saw it. An old lantern. It was different from any I'd ever seen. Tall and narrow, made of a metal I couldn't name. Time had greened it with patina, and cobwebs veiled it like a shroud. But what stopped me cold wasn't its age. It was the way it glowed, dimly, gently, from within. Not a flame, not oil, not even light as we know it. It pulsed, softly, as if it had been waiting. I knelt before it, brushing away webs and dust with shaking fingers. As I touched its base, warmth spread through my palms, gentle and steady, like a memory rising from deep water. And then I saw them, not with my eyes, but in the space between thought and breath. Glimpses. A girl standing on a stage of stone speaking into the dusk, while shadows listened and remembered. An old man whispering a tale into a river, the ripples carrying it into another world. A child tracing symbols on a foggy window, each stroke opening a forgotten door. And then, me, or someone who looked like me, so closely it made my chest ache. She stood beside this same lantern, holding it high, her face half lit by memory light. Her lips moved, shaping stories I couldn't hear but somehow knew. The villagers gathered around her, listening, remembering. I staggered back, breath shallow. My hands trembled, and I pressed them to my heart as if to steady it. This wasn't just a story passed down. This was my story. A thread long buried, now tugged into the open. The lantern dimmed slightly, as if waiting for me to do something. Speak, act, remember. I took a deep breath and whispered the first tale I had ever heard in the village square. The one about the girl with fern-green eyes who helped a weeping willow sleep. As I spoke, the lantern responded. It glowed brighter, and within its light, the shadow of the willow appeared on the wooden wall behind me, branches swaying in a wind I couldn't feel. The girl's outline stood beneath it, then faded into stars. My voice caught, tears pricking my eyes. This lantern didn't just show memories. It honored them. It listened. I realized then, this wasn't simply a relic. It was a keeper, a vessel, a heart, and somehow, so was I. I spent the rest of the night there, curled near the lantern, pages of my notebook scattered around me like fallen leaves. Each story I told aloud, ones I had gathered from the square or found scrawled in corners of old books, brought a new flicker to the lantern's glow. The story of the boy who traded his voice for silence to protect the dreams of a town. the tale of a baker whose pastries carried secret lullabies, the shadow of a fox who only visited on nights when the moon was too tired to shine. Each one shimmered inside the lantern for a breath or two before vanishing, like exhaled fog. I think the lantern was hungry, not for fuel but for memory, for voice, and for something more. Understanding. That's when it clicked. The tales weren't just to be remembered. They were meant to be spoken, lived, healed. That night I felt something awaken inside me. A flicker that had always been there, waiting for the right spark. I wasn't just a listener. I wasn't just a girl who sketched stories and followed shadows. I was part of the line, the ones who held stories so others would not forget. A descendant of the Keeper of Dusk. I returned to the tower night after night. It became my second home, tucked into twilight. A place where I could speak without fear, where my voice echoed with more than just words. It carried history. Some nights I read old village records and tucked names into the lantern's light, giving them shape and breath again. Other nights I simply listened, letting the wind through the tower slats murmur tales I hadn't yet heard. And sometimes I dreamed of her, the girl who looked like me. She didn't speak, but her eyes held a question. Not a challenge, not a warning, just a soft wondering. Will you carry it forward? I always nodded, even if my dream self didn't have the voice to reply. It wasn't long before others noticed something changing. Villagers began dreaming of old stories again. Some they thought lost to childhood, others they didn't even know they'd forgotten. The shadows in the square grew more vivid, more responsive. They began finishing my sentences, flickering in agreement when I spoke. I could feel them recognize me. One evening I brought the lantern to the square. It had never left the tower before, and I wasn't sure it would even work away from its home. But when I set it gently in the center of the circle and whispered the first line of a tale, it pulsed as before, warm, golden, alive. The villagers leaned in. Some smiled, some wept. One elderly woman gripped my hand and whispered, "I dreamed that lantern when I was a girl. I thought I'd made it up." And I whispered back, "Maybe you remembered it." I don't know what happens next, not entirely, but I feel it in my bones. This is only the beginning. There are more stories waiting, some buried under years of silence, others tangled in shadow, a few lodged in the hearts of those who never thought they were allowed to speak. But now they are. Now we remember. Now we listen. And as for me, I carry the lantern. I keep it near, tucked by my side like a pulse. I speak into the dusk, and the dusk speaks back, because stories aren't just for telling. They are for mending, and I think just maybe so am I. And that ends tonight's meditation. You're welcome to stay for a bit longer if you like. Have a beautiful night. Until next time.